this whole time.
Yeah, I know, I just heard. No.
You should have told me, I told you.
Yeah, it's alright.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Motion to share sign.
Are you sure you want one? That might be the last one.
Anyone want the last one?
You know what, I think I have some from this right
Anyone want the
here.
last one?
No,
Thanks to the offer.
no, but it is very clean.
Community building.
Okay, let's call the village board meeting back to order. It is 9:23. And we are on item 6I, application for special privilege for an en route along the west side of North Wilson Drive, submitted by Rabbi Dinan on behalf of Lake Park Synagogue. Did this go to committee? No. Okay, Park.
So the materials are in the package. I'm not exactly sure if there's specific questions. Rabbi Dinan probably has more information on the general concept of the A-room, if that's what's being questioned, or if there's a question with, the application itself, I'd be happy to take that as well, so.
I had a question on, I actually had a chance to go out there and look. The poles, like at Congress, there's a bus stop, we've planted new trees. There's like 3 trees right under the area where this would be running. How is do you monitor this, or what's gonna happen?
Sure.
Just your name and address.
Absolutely. Rabbi Dinan, I live in Milwaukee on Stoll Avenue. I also want to make sure that I thank Bart and Leanne for all of their help, and thank you all for welcoming me here on this late night. So I'll answer that question, and then either I can just respond to direct questions, or I can give an overview of the concept. But the answer to do we monitor it, not only do we pay for installing it, but we also monitor it weekly, partly because if it goes down, then it's not effective for what we need to use it for. And in fact, I know from having been involved in this project in other cities, is that oftentimes the monitoring of it, the people who monitor it from the community will catch things and call up We Energies, et cetera, and say, did you know that this was down, et cetera. So yes, we pay for someone to professionally monitor it and repair it if need be. And it's very flexible, so if there are any issues about the wire, the height, et cetera, like that going around trees, it's very easy to change also in the future, because it's really from pole to pole, it's not just one long wire. So if you say, this was an issue, this one between this pole and this pole is an issue, change it, we can do that at any time in the future.
So they're anchored, so if it breaks, a tree comes down in the storm, takes out the.
Happens all the time.
It's just that length between those 2 poles.
Correct.
And then so the village does nothing. Once you put it in, once we issue this, we don't, if we had to prune the tree grows in, that's all everything's.
Absolutely, there's that famous infomercial, set it and forget it, that's what this project is. Once it's put up, once we get the public approval, it becomes our responsibility to monitor, maintain anyway, absolutely. And more importantly, the village of Shorewood, if they do work, they do not have to tell us that they did work. I hope they wouldn't go up there and snap it intentionally, but if they have to do work and it's in the way, they take it, and it's our responsibility as the Jewish community, and I'm representing not just Lake Park, but really the whole Jewish community of the east side, which includes parts of Milwaukee, Whitefish Bay, and Shorewood as well. It's our responsibility to check it, and again, we're often good neighbors, and we'll say, by the way, did you know, so-and-so is an issue, and make sure that it gets resolved.
Will you be congregating in the area?
No, not at all. Would it be helpful if I gave just a very general conceptual overview of it?
If it's short.
Okay.
Yeah,
No.
Just so you know about, may I?
Yeah, please.
I believe it was at our last meeting, the concept came up under a different discussion.
Was this Rabbi Lane?
Yes.
Okay.
He did an excellent job. So
Oh, wonderful. Oh, good. So all it does is it in no way discriminates or promotes any particular religion. It just helps the community. Like, if you guys say yes, my 4.5-year-old will be over the moon to know that when I take her to the park, I can carry her in my arms. And by the way, if there's any medical emergency, we can carry regardless. But as to the question of congregating there, absolutely not. It is meant to be completely passive, unobtrusive, and I think Rabbi Lane said it very well. If anyone here went around to any A room, we have multiple ones, including, I learned from Leanne and Bartley, there is one in Shorewood, or at least one that was approved, a small extension of one. No one could find it, to the point where when I lived in Baltimore and I was in charge of checking it, I'd go outside and I'd look in the sun for 5 minutes, oh yes, there it is. And that's one of the benefits of it. It's virtually invisible, but it's also very safe and fairly easy to maintain.
I have one other question, and I'm not an environmentalist,
Please.
as much as the rest of the board probably is. But when in Milwaukee, we used to use fish lines to make the birds stay away from underneath areas where they congregated. And we do it on top of buildings and also under freeways and spurs. So is this, and I know the Wilson Drive is very bird oriented, is this gonna detract the birds? I mean, because that's the purpose of fish line for other purposes, not.
That's a relevant question. One of the locations where we have to put up a small wire is near the Urban Ecology Center over the bridge in front. And when we said the line will be totally invisible, they said, oh, you can totally do the line, but don't make it invisible. We actually want some color in it so it won't scare away the birds. So if that's a consideration, we can make it a colored line. But I will tell you, from having lived on many communities where it's in a very public way, it has not been any issue for the birds. It has not damaged them in any significant statistical way, and nor has it, kept them away. If they saw it, they might have landed on it, which is not an issue. But usually it wasn't, they didn't deal with it at all. And with the trees being, eventually will probably be over it, they'll probably congregate more in the birds, not us. We'll congregate in the trees, but it shouldn't be an issue. And if it is, again, at any time in the future, we can always make amendments to it. But I've never seen it be an issue for the environment around it.
And it stays up how long?
So it's meant to be permanent.
Oh, okay. I did not really know.
Or as long as there are Jews living in Milwaukee who will be utilizing it.
Trustee McKay?
I would make a motion to approve the application for special privilege for an area along the west side of North Wilson Drive submitted by Robin Dinnan on behalf of Lake Wilson.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I have a question. Trustee Martin.
Yeah, you had indicated you will monitor, we can, if we need to, if it comes down, you will take care. That should probably be in the letter or something approving this, because that's a little unique in the, this has a whole process of the village removing a special privilege. And
Right.
you want to memorialize your statements on what exactly your responsibilities as the village is monitoring.
And I don't think Trustee Marr's concern was satisfied for me. You picked a place where we have brand new trees that are small. I don't know how high it is, I apologize, I don't have it in front of me, and I didn't realize it was permanent. So if it's permanent and these trees grow, whose responsibility is it to monitor that? I'm assuming you said yours. And then also for the birds, if this is approved, I would request that either Tyler, you talk to the Conservation Committee, or keep an eye out, because they're the ones that monitor the bird migrations, I don't know, but I do know we used it extensively in Milwaukee for that purpose. So I just want to make sure as the trees grow and as birds, flock in that corridor, that it's not a detriment for any reason, or deterrent, I should say, where they will have to move. Anything else? Trustee Maher, are you suggesting to modify the motion, or?
Yeah, I would include in the correspondence back that reaffirming your statements on you will monitor, you will maintain, the village can, if it needs to work in the area and something happens in line, you will monitor and replace it.
Absolutely. And if there are any environmental concerns come up in the future, we can easily change it to adjust, take it down, move it around a tree, et cetera, like that.
And I just want to say that I'm fine approving a religious symbol, even though it's clear, if it was a color. And I don't know how that'll affect policy decisions going forward, but I know that we're considering one that's on hold right now, or for further discussion. Okay, so do you want to amend the motion, or do you want?
I would like to amend the motion and include the statements saying concerning that the the applicant will maintain and monitor the special privilege, and that if anything were to happen to the line, or if the village needed to work in the area, it's not our responsibility to notify you. You are monitoring and will do the work to repair it. And also that you would indicate if there's a problem with the birds, that we should notify you and somehow modify the special privilege so it does not impact the birds.
I just have one question. One of the important things, we got approval, partly it's the right thing to do, but also if you do work, you don't need to, worry about us. But if someone is, walking by and they say, why is there a wire there, and they just want to cut it because they think it's not supposed to be there, that also, I don't know if there's any way to communicate that with anyone who might do work on the poles. If it gets in their way, they can cut it, we'll fix it. But if it doesn't get in the way, I want them to know there's supposed to be a wire there. Does that make sense?
Is it like a blackbird?
Yeah.
A trustee?
So typically, we want to put as little up as possible.
How high are you placing it?
At the very top of light poles, which I think is 13 feet.
Yeah, measuring closer to the on the score, so, it's not- I do believe it's 13 feet. It's not in there, but I do believe
It's
it's
connecting on the light poles,
correct on the top
Over
of the
the
light
top.
poles.
and it's gonna be transparent.
Correct. No one will see it unless they're looking for it, unless we want them to see it.
But you're not, but people will know it's there.
So the person who checks it will know what they're looking for. There are electrical poles all over the neighborhood where if you walked, you'd say it's an electrical pole, but if you went with me, I'd say that's not supposed to be there. We Energy's installed it for us, and, but no, it is, as I said, unobtrusive, and nothing negative about it.
And does We Energies have to approve anything on their light poles?
It's not our,
Well, it's in our, it's in the right away, right? I don't know if there, I remember this from Abby conversations.
My understanding is that there's been conversations with the Energies before.
And Milwaukee Parks, they both approved everything. We actually went to Parks first, and they said, you can do anything you want, but we're not in charge of this, you have to go to Shorewood. And when I went to Parks, he said, this shouldn't be a problem, but then you're gonna have to go to Whitefish Bay, so this is the first in a set of dominoes.
Oh, God, okay. Lovely. Anything further?
What's yours?
I will second it if you read it to me.
Trustee Martin was to amend.
Was
There was a second?
Yeah, well,
Wes?
Trustee Warren.
Is it a friendly amendment?
I'll accept a friendly amendment if you caught it.
I
I
caught
mean,
it.
it kind of-
I had to include in correspondence to the applicant that the applicant will monitor and maintain if anything happens to the wire. It's not the village's responsibility to notify the applicant, and if there's a bird problem, the village will notify the applicant and the applicant will adjust accordingly.
Okay, so second. So we have an amendment by trustee Meyer, second by President Bozak. Any further discussion?
Just actually second. I
Trustee
made a
Warren.
motion and then trustee Warren seconded.
Oh, and it was a friendly amendment?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind, thank you. Okay, for that clarification. There you go. All right, so we have a motion in front of us. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you all, have a wonderful night, I hope you get home soon.
So items remaining consent agenda, we did public hearing.
absolutely.
Item 8 on the agenda is public hearing. We are not scheduled for any today, so we'll move on to public, number 9, new business. 9A, consider application for Class B intoxicating liquor and beer for Nash BK something LLC, doing business as Bonobo American Bistro, 4518 North Oakland Avenue, Shorewood, Wisconsin, 53211. This went to JP&L. So would you like to give the recommendation, the summary quick and the recommendation?
So now it's the current.
So the recommendation from JPL was unanimous to move forward with the transfer of the liquor license. We did have
So which
a
one
couple of
includes
questions
the-
about
Yeah, so.
some operational changes that might be being implemented in the business. And that's why this was something that we wanted to refer to the
Okay.
board.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. Okay, thanks.
So it's 3-0. Yep, okay. Anybody have any questions? Now I'll entertain a motion.
I would move to approve the application for a Class B license for Nash BK LLC, doing business as Bono American Bistro, 4518 North Oakland Avenue, Shorewood, Wisconsin, 53211, and direct the village clerk to issue the license upon approval of occupancy by the Planning and Development Department.
Second that?
Okay, any further discussion? Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. You're all set. Thank you so much.
Yeah, 20 seconds.
The next item on our agenda is new
Appreciate
business
it, thank
9B, consider ordinance 3007, repealing and replacing section 55-15 of the municipal code for a board of canvassers and to establish a board of absentee canvassers. Went to JP&L will be a roll call vote, correct?
It will, because it is an ordinance.
Okay, trustee Martin.
Do you want to give you JP&L's recommendation? Okay, so, we, again, felt that this would be something that would make the, based on the presentation from the clerk and from those who are working at the canvassers, who, this would make the operations on election day significantly more efficient, and would allow us to continue to encourage early voting and early in-person absentee voting. And so we felt it made the process significantly more efficient and would and accurate. So that was something that we felt unanimously in support of.
And does this have a fiscal note attached, or is that?
And there's actually two motions to be made with this. So the first one is to approve, including about $6,200 in your 2020 budget for the purchase of an additional tabulator. The second motion is to approve the ordinance that we have to forward to the Milwaukee County Elections Commission and the Wisconsin State Elections Commission, so that they know our route that we're taking.
Question, only one's on the agenda?
It is
No,
listed in
there's
the.
There's two of them.
Oh, maybe I just have a different agenda.
For no business, it's the ordinance, 3007, then ordinance 3005. Wait, no, I'm sorry.
No, it isn't.
No,
Mm-mm.
you're right.
So can we vote on both today?
Your ordinance repealing.
Yeah, the ordinance is
Sorry,
on.
2020.
And to establish.
So in the memo, there's two motions.
Right, and that is, the second part of the motion is for the express purpose of establishing the board of absentee canvassers and giving proper notifications pursuant to statute to the state regulatory agencies.
And buying and purchasing equipment. That's where I come from.
And that's all part of establishing the. board of
Right, we
absentee
can't do the canvassing
Right.
with the equipment.
That's really proper.
You don't have to say, and expend funds?
No, I think that's an appropriate reflection of the.
It's for the
Is
2020
it
budget
20?
anyhow, it's not this.
It's for 20, so we won't purchase it till 20.
Oh, and
Yeah.
the first election you leave it in is in February?
Yep.
Okay.
Wouldn't we
They're
just
just around
approving
this,
it in the budget then?
Or you can save it, if you can save that motion, I just want,
There's
you
no
know,
problem.
if we approve the ordinance, purchase of the machine will have to take place.
Okay, no problem. Okay.
I would move to approve ordinance 3007, repealing and replacing section 55-15 of the municipal code, canvass of returns and to establish a board of absentee canvassers.
Second week?
I was wondering if we could do a friendly amendment and just put in the costs associated with it so that it's very clear in the future that we budgeted something. Even, we don't need to for the purpose of notification, but just so our motion in the minutes.
With the anticipation of a cost of approximately $6,280 for an additional DS200 tabulating machine to be used for the needed central count.
I'm okay with that. Are you okay with that, Mr. Second?
I second
Oh,
it, yes.
All right, second. All right, we have a motion from trustee Maher and a second from trustee Menta. Any further discussion? It's a roll call vote, so go ahead.
Trustee Menta.
Aye.
Trustee Bachhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Carpenter.
Yes.
Trustee Maher.
Yes.
Trustee McKay.
Yes.
Trustee Warren.
Aye.
President Rosick.
Yes. Motion carries 7-0. Next item for business is 9C. Consider ordinance number 3005, repealing and replacing chapter 26, Human Relations Commission to provide student members voting rights. Did this go to committee, standing committee? Nope, okay. Tyler? There were some changes, right?
There were some changes. This comes directly from the Human Relations Commission. The changes that the board asked were to clarify which students could apply or be interested, which basically we include language to be an or situation, so they could be a Shorewood High School student, or they could be a resident of Shorewood that goes to school elsewhere. And then we clarified that they can apply to the same process that we've all volunteer committee members. And then trustee Rosick and I worked on just some other minor edits, such as the ratio, changing that from 4 to 7 to 5 to 9 for underrepresented population being a part of the committee. Clarifying ex officio as a non-voting member. Clarifying how the ex officio members are selected, just basically, so like the police department liaison is selected by the police chief, etc. And clarifying that the chair and the vice chair would be elected every June. In the old ordinance language said annually, so just being a little more specific on that.
Okay, any questions or discussion?
I move to repeal and replace ordinance number 3005, Human Relations Commission to provide student members voting rights.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion by trustee Maher, a second by trustee McKay, trustee Bachhorst.
Just one minor edit, and I'd also like us as a board to consider this moving forward, and I don't mean to be this nitpicky, but given a lot of the discussions we've had around inclusion, and actually this is the appropriate time here, the noun chairman is used quite frequently as, it seems like a gender specific noun. It's not always, like chairman, Maher, it's just used as a general noun. So if we could perhaps be a little more modern in our nomenclature, and maybe chairperson or chair.
Just chair would be great.
Just,
Yeah, that's great.
but, yeah.
Chairman, yeah, chair.
And it shows up quite frequently in this document, but it may be in some of the other ones. I don't have my stuff with me, so I couldn't find it. At least for this one, I think would be very important.
Okay, trustee Amenta?
Under 26.2, section A, just a grammatical thing, we say the two student members must be either a Shorewood resident, but it's a multiple noun, so I would say the two student members must either be Shorewood residents or attend a school in Shorewood.
Okay, and so.
Because you're talking about two members, so that, and they're a
I know what you're
resident,
saying.
and it doesn't.
And then, so if the board accepts both of those changes, do we need to modify the motion slightly? Just to say with the changes?
If there's unanimous consent to accept it from the otherwise someone can move to amend.
Yeah, no, or do we have consent? Is everybody
Yeah.
opposed to this?
Sounds
Okay,
good.
so we'll add it to the motion and I'll have you reread it before we vote. I think that's great. The only other question I have, and maybe it's because an item, is just when we're doing an ordinance or a significant monetary investment in something and it comes from a voluntary group, I don't know when we can consider this, but when does it go to a standing committee before it comes to full board for a new ordinance, a changed ordinance? I don't know that answer, but it's come up now at least twice, so. Okay, so we have a motion. Can you please read it back?
To approve ordinance 3004, repealing and replacing chapter 26, Human Relations Commission to provide student member voting rights. And then we will find and replace all the chairpersons with the word chair. And 26.2 section A, we will replace with Shorewood residents or attend a school in Shorewood.
think it's not, to be nitpicky, but I think it's chair, so chairman,
Yeah.
chairmans.
Chairman.
You said chairperson.
I'm sorry.
Can you
I already got it in general neutral, sorry.
Can you reread the end,
The last part.
the
Yep,
two
26.2, section A, I have by Shorewood residents or attend a school in Shorewood.
Be Shorewood
members
residents.
I didn't
must
get,
either be Shorewood residents or attend a school.
So you eliminate A and then add an S at the end of,
Yeah.
Resident.
A and add a S, yes, that's all.
Okay, reread and then we'll take a roll call vote.
to approve ordinance 3004, repealing and replacing chapter 26 of the Human Relations Commission to provide student member voting rights. And replace all chairmen with the word chair in section 26.2, section A, by Shorewood residents or attend a school in Shorewood.
I don't know what point this is, but it's ordinance 3005.
Okay, Trustee Garber, you have something there? No, okay. Everybody okay with that? All right, any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Trustee Warren.
Aye.
Trustee McKay.
Yes.
Trustee Meyer.
Yes.
Trustee Carpenter.
Yes.
Trustee Bachhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Menta.
Aye.
President Rosick.
Aye. Okay, motion carries 7-0 in a roll call vote. That brings us to the end of our new business. We'll now have reports of village officials. For village president, Trustee Carpenter and I attended the feast, the Shorewood feast. I only made the dinner. Oh, you were there. I Trustee Maher, I did see you guys, but okay. The dinner part, I did see Trustee Carpenter, Trustee Maher, and anyways, it was great. It was a great event, and I really enjoyed all the food. It was fabulous, and so looking forward to next year as it grows into an annual event. Successful event. The only other thing I wanted to mention is the ICC was asked to take a vote on a sales tax of 1% for Milwaukee County. We did not have legislation in front of us, although the North Shore Fire Department board had been briefed at one point, but neither time did we have legislation in front of us, so the vote was delayed in concept. We voted for a new revenue stream a month ago, supporting a new revenue stream for Milwaukee County, but the details they were asking us to vote on, we delayed that vote. They did but they did circulate the legislation the next day at the state. And so it has not been introduced, but it's on the floor getting circulated. They think that it'll be introduced. I'm not sure if it'll get scheduled. And so regardless, I just received the draft this morning from the county, and the city came here to Village Hall to speak and give us the draft legislation. Rebecca has a copy if you want to send it. It's already changed according to the lobbyists that were here today. But just read over it, and we have about 2 weeks or a week and a half if you have questions or any concerns to go ahead and send them to Rebecca. And
it was sent out, it was attached to the, I'm sorry, last Wednesday, the early Friday October.
So just, anyways, it has changed. I don't know exactly how, but just know it'll change. And then once it gets legislative, it does, it'll morph again, and we'll take a vote after that. So that's all I have. The next one is any village trustee reports. Jessica, Trustee Carpenter.
I just wanted to announce that I have been doing some work with Mountain in Action, and they have changed their structure, so they're really much more hyper-local, and they have created a North Shore chapter. So their meeting last month was actually in Shorewood at the Village Center, but their next meeting is tomorrow. In Whitefish Bay, at the Whitefish Bay Library, but they are having monthly meetings, and they're really looking to work on more local, to really work together with smaller local groups.
Excellent. Anybody else? Trustee Menta.
Yeah, on Sunday, the Human Relations Commission is going to be at the farmers market, and I expect there'll be some comments and questions about the holiday decorations policy, so if anybody wants to stop by. And we also did, Sarah Spencer and I did go to Shore moving forward and presented the policy and the thinking behind it to that group, and got some real good feedback, so we are talking about it further.
Excellent. And that feedback will be shared with the board at some point before we consider it, correct? Right, you're gathering it and we'll, at the board meeting next week.
I mean, I can summarize it, I didn't like write it down or get formal feedback, I'm just.
Trustee Warren? Oh, was that it, Trustee Warren? Okay, Trustee Warren.
Just very quickly, just wanted to add that I was also at the Shorewood board meeting this Saturday morning. In addition to the update on the declarations policy, it's a good discussion on what that group has been doing in the community, some of the good work they've been doing. And just a kind of nice gathering and discussing some issues throughout Shorewood.
About kids, right? There's a lot of focus on kids.
A lot of focus on kids, a lot of focus on schools, things like that. But it was my impression they hadn't come together in a while, so this was an update on a lot of different initiatives they've been working on. They've accomplished an extraordinary amount of work in the last few months.
Excellent. Trustee Bockhurst?
So a couple of you mentioned some things that are similar to what kind of jogged my memory, so thank you. First being the Milwaukee County sales tax that President Rosick mentioned, because we had a special board meeting the following day, so your meeting was on a Monday and ours was on a Tuesday, to discuss what the board's position would be on this. And even though this is more, well, it's a county and a municipal issue at the same time, but from that meeting, if I remember correctly, all but 4 or 6 counties of the 72 in the state already do have some form of sales tax, but of course with Milwaukee County going into this, if we were to do this alone, it would be tricky because Milwaukee in general takes a lot of heat from the state, or at least has in the last 10 years, and also the necessity of this to not be a partisan issue. And that it will be tricky during the elections that are coming up. So as President Rosick mentioned, this may get recognized, unlikely to go to the floor of this legislative session, at least according to some of the folks on the league. But it is a great issue. I'm really happy that ICC is working hard on it, and I know that there were some people that thought about what it was going to be taken, and others were quite surprised. So a little more time needs to happen, but I do look forward to the update from that. Also, Common Ground, the organization, we did a resolution a while back on smart gun technology and Shorewood support, which is great, and I'm glad to hear that the Mountains Demanding Action is forming a lot more local chapters, and the Common Ground is still really aggressively working towards issues with gun violence, and also they put together a really nice panel. Unfortunately, I believe we already had a very full docket, but with some pretty, a very diverse socioeconomic and political panel addressing gun violence as a public health issue and concern, and also not only the social costs of gun violence, but also the financial and costs that are absorbed, quite frankly, often at the local level. And I think it was when I was speaking with Trustee McKagan on a different issue, something about if you want to monetize it, which I don't agree to, but let's just go there for a moment. It's about $1 million. Is it per individual who's a victim of gun violence? I don't know if that means death or just, so anyway.
Non-fatal.
Non-fatal, okay. Yeah, so I imagine that we will hear more of this, and I am also imagining it as counties are also dealing with these issues, and municipalities and stuff, and looking for ways that we can receive adequate funding from the state and federal agencies in order to address, some of the issues. And I'm not trying to be a proponent for or more or less, gun restrictions or anything like that, but I do think that people on all sides of the aisle are looking at this through a different lens and understanding that there is, if nothing else, a municipal need for education and funding to address some of the victims. So I think I have something else, but
I had 2 other things that you probably want to know about. One was Wabatos just finished drafting their electric scooter ordinance.
Yeah.
They sent it, I asked the ICC that anyone who had one send it. They sent it, and Brian Kennedy forwarded it to me. Were you CC'd on it? Okay, so we have, Jessica, did you get it as words? Okay, so we have that to start working on if that's the board's will. I can't remember what we talked about. And then the other item was that the Heroin Task Force did update the ICC, and the numbers have not gone down. So the numbers of fatalities and kids, and so they've been working on it for a while, but nothing's improving at this point. That's it. Any other trustee that has an update? If not, the village manager?
Just to follow up on the Lyme, the staff has met with Lyme. We've also been waiting for, it was Wauwatosa, and now, sometime this week, the staff is also going to be considering the ordinance. It had a little bit of a different approach on it, but they've also put it through their legal review, and we've also reviewed the Lyme review. So we're going to come back to you in October with some updates, just so you know it's not off our radar.
Are you gonna go to JP now? Or a committee, or are you just coming straight to board?
Well, one of the requests of the board made was that the kind of like safety made recommendations to the board.
Yep.
We as a staff also then kind of took that a little bit further, and we took steps to meet with Lyme and then read what some other municipalities were doing in conjunction with the pilot program. So we want to add some additional content to that.
I'm just wondering, whenever we have a new ordinance, and I think that's what I was just stating on HRC, when there's a change or a new ordinance, can it go to standing committee before it comes to the board? Because there's a lot of, that one might not be controversial, but like the HRC one, rather than having the volunteers out front.
So I wasn't under the impression that we're moving forward with an ordinance right away, but we wanted to come back to you with our staff recommendation in terms of here are your options based upon how you want to pursue this topic.
Oh, okay. As a board, then would you refer it to committee?
Yes, you could,
Oh, okay.
at that point. I think there's just a general, I think, check-in that we need to do as a group to say, like, which route do we want to take with this? And I'd like to get some feedback, because, you know, we could adjust too from there, if that's okay. You guys are a great sounding board.
Okay. Great. Anything further? Is there any other updates that we need? Village manager, items for future consideration.
Next Monday, we have a budget finance committee meeting. I'll be traveling, but hope to be able to call in. What are the times of that meeting?
6 o'clock is what we had in our schedule.
Do you anticipate an end time, or is it just?
There's no other meeting after that, right?
No, right, correct. That's the only meeting that's occurring that evening.
Okay. And do we have all the materials for the meeting, or is there going to be more? Those could be sent out before the meeting.
Correct. You have your binders that should have been at your places this evening. Did everyone get the binder?
Yeah.
Great, okay. I don't believe that Mark had anticipated distributing out anything.
He had mentioned a presentation or something. Is it PowerPoint?
No.
So he's not doing any more presentations.
No.
We're just, like we did last year, it's gonna
Correct.
be, you know, questions and discussion, and I'm not asking the department heads to make presentations.
But we do have topics outlined. So next Monday will be capital budget, general fund. I have to look at that.
If you're not, you know, it might be worthwhile to email your questions,
Yeah,
so they get,
Yeah, just
so we don't have
what
to,
we
so
have to
that we know
read.
where they're on the docket,
Right.
if you can't get through, or if we can't hear you, or if the phone doesn't work or something, that they're there.
And also, there was a few questions outlined today about capital, and if those can be, any answers provided to that, so we don't have to waste time as well.
Next Monday is going to be general fund, capital fund, and utility budget.
So revenues are in there, right? So like
Correct.
the questions today about court fees and parking fines, will have the information on.
Is there going to be in past years, there's been a consolidated agenda for all the meetings?
Yes.
That's gonna
Yes,
be-
that will be released as well, and posted.
What do you mean by that? So I'm clear, what does that mean? Consolidated agenda, is that at the bottom of our?
So in years past, Mark has put together like all the special budget and finance committee meetings on one agenda. So if someone wants to review or participate in one aspect of the budget or not another, they know when we're going to be reviewing different topics. And it's just kind of the overview. It's the same outline that you've kind of provided before.
And can we meet in here? I'm hoping, or does everyone prefer the committee room? I just feel like there's more room in case the public comes as we grow in participation. Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure. All right, thank you. Any further updates or future agenda items at this time? See that? Oh, yes.
Just wanted to remind you guys again to register for the League's annual conference this October. I think, yes,
Your sections.
Oh, and then this stuff.
village manager
And do I
will take your orders like
that?
There's a nice run walk that's been here. We started out as a 4-mile fun run. I think they got the hint that 2 to 3 miles is more fun.
Yeah, okay, I won't be participating in that. Anyhow. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And I have a motion by trustee Bachler, seconded by trustee Warren. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
That's long, sir.
All right. Keep dreaming.
Municipal law.
Keep those in here. Yes.
Just didn't happen to land and all.
Yep.
Update, just update.